everyone, welcome to Future Fossil. Today I'm going to be showing you a bit of a step-by-step on how to create our first picnic blanket square. Here's a quick example that I've put together for you. So what we want to do is make sure that you've got some materials ready. So first of all I'll show you a sort of list of materials, and that'll include some leaves that you either found in the garden or the park as well. So I'll show you the materials and then we'll get into the video. So here are the materials that you'll be needing for the Natural World Picnic Blanket Square. We have some materials here such as muslin and calico, but you can use maybe an old pillowcase, something neutral and preferably cotton, but something sort of neutral that will show up nice bright colours. We've got some paint brushes here, some paint in our colour scheme of greens, browns, yellows, whites and blue. Some leaves that I have found in the garden, a nice variety of leaves. Some thread, some needles, some pins and some scissors, and also some pens. So let's get started. Okay, so the purpose of today's video is to show you how you can contribute to Future Fossil's public piece of art. The plan is that we all create a set of these squares made out of stuff we found around the home following these videos, and get together when we can to join them all together and to create a sort of large-scale picnic blanket or hanging to be part of the public artwork that will sit in Oxley Park. The theme of this one today is Natural World. That's why we've gone for a very sort of leafy green colour scheme. So you've seen in the materials that you'll need some fabrics and stuff. So I've got a plain one here. And first of all, I'm going to show you just how to get started. So you'll have the measurements in your activity pack. I believe it's 20 by 20 centimetres. This is just a sort of crudely cut piece of fabric. I'll cut it down to size properly when I'm completed. So what we're going to do first of all is we're going to take a selection of leaves that we've got from the garden. So I think this was from a lilac tree, and we've got a holly bush in the garden as well. So we've got a few different ones, and also like a dandelion. Just a dandelion leaf I found in the garden because we've got a lot of weeds in our garden. So first of all, what I'd suggest we do is we're going to take just a felt tip pen and try and use colours that we've already got in our sort of colour palette. So when I say colour palette, I mean the group of colours that we're going to be working with. So they include the greens, the blues, the yellows, the browns, and a bit of black and white as well. So I've got a green just felt tip pen Sharpie here. So first of all, I'm going to take a couple of the leaves and I'm going to place them face down onto my square of fabric, and I'm just going to draw around them. Now you don't need to be too precise. This is really just to get a bit of an outline to give your leaf a bit more definition. So there you can see that I've created that leaf outline. There's nothing fancy about it, it's just a quick outline with a pen. I'm going to do a couple more, so I'm going to take this, I've got like an ivy leaf here. Couple more, just going to do a few quick outlines, and even if they don't join up, sometimes if it's a little bit sketchy and a bit messy, it can look really good actually. So don't worry too much about getting it dead on. So this one here, added on, it's overlapped a little bit, but that doesn't matter. I haven't done the stalk or the stem of that one. We can add that in later. And let's go for a holly one. It's a bit spiky, so be careful if you do find these ones. A bit more tricky as well because it's a bit more detailed around the edges. There we go. There is the holly outline as well. So it's a bit of a spiky mess at the moment, but you'll see what happens when we add in more details as we go. So the next step, once we've done that, is to get our paints. So I've got like a little thing here with just some splodges of acrylic paint on. If you've got poster paint, that's fine. But yeah, just some paints in the colours that I've said about. All we're going to do is, I'll just show you one just so you get the idea. All we're going to do is grab a sort of selection of paints and we're just going to really messily paint it on. So There's not a huge amount of skill that needs to go into this part. It's more about just getting a bit messy and having fun. And you can see I've already got quite a lot of paint on my hands from the other ones that I've done earlier. And actually I quite like it when you get a real mishmash of colours on your leaf, because it will give it a bit more sort of detail and texture. So I'm going to add a few more bits of colour on there. And try and get right up to the edges on your leaf. You might find it's easier to do it on a flat surface actually. I don't know why I'm not. But so this is our really splodgy leaf. Now I think I might have a little bit too much paint on this one. So we're going to print it and find out. So we're going to lay it down just a roundabout where you've drawn your outline. But please don't worry about it being precise, because actually it gives it a bit more sort of dimension and depth if you have a little bit of a difference into where you've placed it and where you've drawn the outline. So here, can you see we've got our splodge of paint in our leaf shape. Now it doesn't look like much at the moment, but when we add our details with our thread, with stitching, it's going to look really interesting. You'll see on, which one is it? On this one that I've got here. I did this the other day. And so that's a sort of leaf printed onto calico with the paints, and then I've gone in with our thread, so I'll show you how to do that in a bit. It's a good idea as well to do a few of these, and then you can mix and match. So on here you'll see that this one is actually separate. You'll see I've stitched that one on, and so it's actually separate to this square. So if you do a couple of pieces of fabric and just print lots and lots of leaves, you can pick your best ones. So what we're going to do, I'm going to imagine I've printed all of my leaves, and we're going to set that aside to dry, and then I'll show you what to do next. So now that our piece has dried, I've got one that I've done earlier, just to speed it up. Now it's dried, you can see here I've got my outlines. I'll hold it up for you. I've got my outlines with the printed leaves inside. So we've done a bit of a variety of leaves, so it's quite nice if you find a mixture of different leaves when you're printing. So what we're going to do now is going to add some more detail to our printed squares, and for that we're going to use a needle and a thread. So I've got some spools of thread hanging around in the same sort of colours as we've been using, and so I'm just going to select one. I've got some brown on here already. So I've just threaded it into the needle, it's doubled up. I'm just going to tie a little knot in the end. Now I know threading a needle can be a bit tricky. You can get the needle threaders actually that help you get the thread through the eye of the needle, so they are really helpful if you struggle seeing to do so. So because I've got brown thread, I think I'll start on a green square, because if I was to add brown to this one you might not see it so well. So we're going to start from underneath, and that way our knot is hidden at the back. And first of all, I'm just going to add a few stitches up the centre of the leaf. So when you look at a leaf normally, you see it's got a vein right up the centre. So I'm just adding a real quick running stitch, this is called, through the centre of our leaf. So here's the vein I was sort of talking about. This is obviously a different leaf, but you've got your leaf, your vein right up the centre, along with the smaller veins coming off, and they're the sort of shapes we're going to be trying to replicate with thread. So my example that I showed you a moment ago, you can see has got that veining on there. If you look at it from behind, you can see it a bit more clearly. So that's the messy side where all the stitching is gone. So yeah, we can be as messy as we like. We don't need to worry about that. It's more about getting the detail on there and getting the lines in place. If you want, you can go back in with your pens once it's nice and dry. Make sure it's nice and dry, and you can use them as a guide. So you can almost do like a sort of dotting line. And can you see how it's just adding a bit of texture and a bit of structure back into this leaf? You can see it's just added a little bit more texture in there. Of course, if you need any help with different types of stitching that you can use, YouTube is so good if you're looking for different types of stitching to learn new kinds. And I've been sewing for, I don't know, 20 years, and I still find new stitches that I've never used before. So keep looking for things like that and keep inspiring yourself with different types of stitching techniques. I think what I'm going to do with this piece is actually just going to tie off and snip this bit of thread. And what I might actually do is pin this other piece on. So remember I was saying to try and print as many leaves as you want. I'm just taking some pins that I've got and just sort of pinning it in place as to where I want it. And that way I know it's going to stay still while I try and stitch round it. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll stitch round it and I'll add some more details, and when it's finished we'll come back and we'll talk about the end result. Okay, so I'm just going to go over a few basic stitch techniques just to get you guys started. So these are a couple. We're going to be doing a back stitch and a running stitch. Obviously you can search online for other types of stitching. There are thousands out there. Some are really complicated, some are a bit more basic. So I think to get started, what I'll show you to do is, it really helps if you draw a straight line. Now of course you're not always going to be stitching in a straight line, especially if you're drawing around a leaf, but it's just a line to follow for your stitching, and I'll draw another one as well. So any straight edge will do. I haven't got a ruler to hand, I'm just using this lolly stick. So we've got our two straight lines here. So we're going to write back stitch and running stitch. This will help us to get a bit of practice in. So I suggest you give this a go on just a scrap bit of fabric that you've got. And it does help to get sort of used to using these different types of stitches. So for running stitch, this is probably the most sort of simple one, and it's really handy just for getting things tacked onto your fabric. So for a running stitch, we're just going to be going in and out. Can you see? So in and out of the fabric, creating a stitch that's gone into the fabric and through the other side. Okay, so we've got in and out. So this is what we're going to do for our running stitch. So what I'll do is I'll just flip it round, and I'll show you again off of the line so you can see it a bit neater. So we're going to go in and back out again. Okay, and in and back out again. And you can see we're starting to get a dashed line. Now I'm doing this whilst looking through my phone, so it's not super neat, and I'm not following a line this time, so you can see it's a bit wonky. So we're going to go again, and you can see that we've got this nice dashed line. Now you'll notice if you pull it quite taut, it will gather the fabric, so you want to try and keep it as flat as possible. Now of course if you want gathered fabric, it's perfect for that, so you know, keep that in mind. Okay, so with back stitch, we are going to come in from behind the fabric. You always want your knot at the back, really. I've missed my line. So I'll show you it just slightly off of the line actually, so you can see it a bit better. So the first stitch you're going to do is going to be very similar actually. So you're going to go in and out. Now instead of going straight in again at another stitch, we're going to go back here. And what we're going to do is we are going to come back in. So you're going back on yourself and back up again. Can you see? So your lines are actually going to be joined up rather than sort of dashed. So we're going to go back on ourselves, and back up again on the outside of the fabric. And you see, we're getting our line joined together. Again, I'm going off of the line again because I'm looking at it through a phone. And so we're just going to repeat that a couple of times. And so we're essentially drawing a line with our thread. When I do my own textiles work, this is usually what I like to do as a back stitch, because it is similar to just drawing a line like you would with a pen, but just with stitch. Obviously it takes a bit longer. So we're going to go back on ourselves and back up again. And you see we're creating that nice straight line. So there are a couple of stitches for you guys to, have a go at. You're not going to be perfect first time. I mean, look at me, I'm off of the line straight away. So keep trying and perfecting that. So here we are, guys. This is the finished square. As you can see, I've added some stitching here. This is done in a back stitch with 2 different coloured threads. We've also stitched here our sort of tacking stitch around the edge, which I showed you. This one just has a small running stitch up here. This piece here is another collaged piece, and actually the inside stitching on this one is done with a sewing machine, and then it's just tacked on around the edge. So this is a finished square, and I've added extra details with some sort of pens and almost like a fine liner as well to give it a bit more detail. Coloured in some areas and done some dots around the edges. So there you are, guys. Thanks for watching the video. Keep your eye out for the next lot of videos. We're going to be doing similar things using similar colours, but they're going to be around different themes. So yeah, can't wait to see you again, and take care. Thank you. Bye.